A 68-year-old retired teacher, Martha Chen, told me she did everything right. No smoking, never more than a glass of wine with dinner, walked 4 miles every morning without fail. She tracked her steps. She took her blood pressure medication exactly as prescribed. She never missed her annual checkup. She prided herself on her health. Her doctors praised her compliance. And then, one Tuesday evening, she felt a tightness across her chest while washing dishes. Not crushing pain, just pressure. Just enough to make her pause. By the time her husband called the ambulance, she was struggling to breathe. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was already in cardiac arrest. When we opened her chest in the operating room, what I found shocked me. Not blocked arteries from cholesterol buildup. Not a blood clot from inactivity. What I saw was calcification throughout her vascular system that had been building silently for years. Arterial walls that should have been smooth and elastic were stiff and brittle. The contributing factor? Something she drank every single day. Something she bought at the grocery store in the health aisle. Something her doctor never asked about. Something millions of seniors reach for without a second thought, believing they're making the healthier choice. Here's what nobody tells you about what you drink. The beverages that seem harmless. The ones marketed as healthy. The ones you don't even think to mention when your doctor asks about your diet. What I'm going to tell you today could save your life. Stay with me. My name is Dr. Michael Hartley. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon with 32 years in the operating room. I've opened over 2,000 chests in my career. I've held beating hearts in my hands. And I've spent 3 decades watching the same preventable patterns repeat. Patients who exercised, ate their vegetables, took their medications exactly as prescribed, and still ended up on my operating table. Today I'm going to tell you what nobody took the time to explain to them. The 5 beverages that are quietly destroying hearts after 60. Not alcohol. Not soda. Things that most people consider perfectly safe, even healthy. Here's what you need to understand about your body after 60. Your cardiovascular system is not the same machine it was at 40. Think of it like an old car. The same fuel that powered it fine for decades can suddenly cause damage when the engine's tolerance changes. The timing belt has wear. The gasket seals aren't as tight. The cooling system doesn't respond as quickly to temperature changes. You can't push it the same way and expect the same performance without consequences. After 60, your arteries lose elasticity. The smooth muscle cells in your vessel walls stiffen. What used to flex with every heartbeat now resists. That resistance means higher pressure. Your kidneys filter less efficiently. They process about 30 to 40% less blood per minute than they did at age 30. That means substances that used to clear your system in hours now linger for most of a day. Your body's ability to process sugar drops by almost 30%. The insulin receptors on your cells become less responsive. The same amount of glucose that your body handled easily at 50 now triggers inflammation at 70. The margin for error gets smaller, and smaller margins mean bigger consequences. What didn't hurt you before can devastate you now. Not because you're doing anything wrong, because your body's tolerance has fundamentally changed. More than 60% of adults over 65 have at least one chronic condition being managed with medication. Most of those medications interact with what you drink, not just alcohol. Everyday beverages, things you don't even think to mention to your doctor. And those interactions, compounded over months and years, create the exact conditions I see in the operating room when I open a chest and find damage that didn't need to happen. Let me show you what I mean. The first beverage on this list is one that most people drink every single morning. And it's the hardest one to talk about because coffee is more than a drink for most people. It's a ritual, a comfort, a way to start the day. The smell, the warmth of the mug in your hands, the first sip that tells your brain the day has officially begun. I'm not telling you to give up coffee entirely, but here's what nobody tells you about what coffee does to your body after 60 and why the timing matters more than you think. Caffeine triggers a surge in cortisol and adrenaline. That's normal. That's how it wakes you up. That's why it works. But after 60, your body's ability to clear caffeine from your system slows down significantly. The enzymes in your liver that break down caffeine become less efficient. What used to take 4 hours now takes 6, sometimes 8. That means the coffee you drink at 7 in the morning is still affecting your cardiovascular system at 3 in the afternoon. Some of you are drinking a second cup at noon. That caffeine is still in your bloodstream when you go to bed. Here's the mechanism. Caffeine constricts your blood vessels. It tells them to tighten. In a younger body with elastic arteries, that's temporary and harmless. The vessels constrict, then they relax. No damage. But in an older body with stiffer vessels, that constriction doesn't release as easily. It creates sustained elevated blood pressure. And if you're already taking medication for hypertension, you're asking your heart to fight two opposing forces at the same time. The medication is trying to relax your vessels. The caffeine is trying to constrict them. Your heart is caught in the middle, working harder than it needs to. I had a patient, Robert, 71, a retired accountant. Healthy weight, active, managed his diabetes well, but his blood pressure wouldn't stabilize no matter how we adjusted his medication. We tried 3 different combinations. Nothing worked. When I finally asked him about his coffee intake, he said 3 cups before noon. Not excessive by most standards. Not what most people would consider a problem. I asked him to cut it to 1 cup and to drink it after breakfast, not before. Not on an empty stomach when the caffeine hits your system the hardest. 6 weeks later, his systolic pressure dropped by 14 points. 14 points. Just from changing when and how much he drank. Here's what you do. If you're over 60 and drinking more than 2 cups of coffee a day, cut back to 1. Drink it with food, not on an empty stomach, and never after 2 p.m. Your heart needs the evening hours to recover. It needs time without stimulants pushing it harder than it wants to go. Starting tonight, try it. Write that down. The second beverage is one that billions of dollars in marketing have convinced you is healthy. Sports drinks, electrolyte beverages, the brightly colored bottles that promise hydration and recovery and optimal performance. And for athletes, for people sweating heavily during intense physical activity, they serve a purpose. They replace what the body loses. But for seniors drinking them casually, after a walk around the neighborhood, after light yard work, after an hour in the garden, they are quietly wrecking your kidneys and spiking your blood pressure in ways you don't feel until the damage is done. These drinks are loaded with sodium. 1 bottle can contain 400 to 600 milligrams. That's a third of the daily limit for someone managing hypertension. But here's the part that makes it worse. After 60, your kidneys lose their ability to excrete sodium efficiently. The nephrons in your kidneys, the tiny filtering units that remove waste, decline in number and function as you age. Sodium you consume today doesn't just leave your system tomorrow. It lingers. It accumulates in your tissues, and while it's there, it pulls water into your bloodstream, increasing the volume your heart has to pump. More volume means more pressure. More pressure means more strain. More strain means thickening of the heart muscle, specifically the left ventricle. That thickening is called left ventricular hypertrophy. It's one of the leading markers for sudden cardiac death in seniors. And remember that old car analogy from earlier? Your kidneys are part of that engine. They're working with less capacity than they had 20 years ago. When you flood them with 600 milligrams of sodium they don't need, you're asking them to work overtime on something that doesn't benefit you. Let me ask you something. Do you drink these after a walk? After light yard work? If you're not sweating heavily for more than an hour, if you're not running a marathon or playing competitive tennis, you don't need electrolyte replacement. What you need is water. Plain water. Your kidneys can handle normal sodium fluctuations if you're not overloading them with 600 milligrams at a time from a bottle you thought was helping. The fix here costs nothing. Replace the sports drink with water. If you genuinely need electrolytes after intense activity, use a quarter of a teaspoon of sea salt in a liter of water. That's it. You get the sodium and minerals without the sugar, without the artificial dyes, without the 400 milligrams you don't need. That's the fix. Not next week. Tonight. Now this next one surprises people every time. Fruit juice. Even the ones that say 100% juice, no added sugar. Because the sugar doesn't need to be added. It's already there. Concentrated. Stripped of the fiber that would normally slow its absorption. And for a senior body that processes sugar less efficiently than it used to, fruit juice is a direct path to insulin resistance, inflammation, and vascular damage. Here's the mechanism. When you drink orange juice, your blood sugar spikes fast. Faster than it would if you ate an orange. Your pancreas responds by flooding your bloodstream with insulin. That insulin drives the sugar into your cells. But after 60, your cells become less responsive to insulin. They resist it, so your pancreas has to produce more. Over months and years, this cycle creates chronic low-grade inflammation throughout your vascular system. Inflammation damages the lining of your arteries. Damaged lining becomes a site for plaque buildup. Plaque buildup restricts blood flow. Restricted blood flow increases pressure. You see where this goes? One patient I'll never forget. Susan, 64. She came in after a mini stroke. When I reviewed her intake, she was drinking 2 glasses of orange juice every morning because her doctor told her to get more vitamin C. 2 glasses. That's 60 grams of sugar before breakfast. I asked her to stop the juice and eat an actual orange instead. 3 months later, her fasting glucose dropped from 112 to 96. Her inflammation markers, measured by C-reactive protein, dropped by 40%, all from replacing juice with whole fruit. Which of these beverages do you recognize in your own mornings? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. 2 more items after this one. And item 4, that's the one that even I had a significant blind spot about for the first 15 years of my career. Stay with me. The 4th beverage is one that's marketed directly to seniors. Protein shakes, meal replacement drinks, the ones that promise complete nutrition in a bottle. And I'm not talking about medical nutrition for patients who can't eat solid food. I'm talking about the mass market products that millions of healthy seniors drink daily because they believe it's supporting their health. It's not. It's overloading your kidneys with protein your body can't use and spiking your insulin with hidden sugars your body can't process. Here's what's happening inside your body. After 60, your kidneys' filtration rate declines. That's normal aging. But when you drink a protein shake with 30 grams of protein, your kidneys have to filter the waste products from that protein. If you're already eating a normal diet, you don't need 30 extra grams. What you're doing is forcing your kidneys to work overtime on waste removal instead of focusing on filtering toxins, balancing electrolytes, and regulating blood pressure. Over time, this creates a measurable decline in kidney function. And declining kidney function is one of the strongest predictors of cardiovascular events in seniors. But here's the part I missed for years. These shakes also contain 10 to 20 grams of sugar, sometimes more. Even the ones labeled low sugar often use sugar alcohols or artificial sweeteners that still trigger an insulin response. Your body after 60 doesn't distinguish between natural sugar and processed sugar. It sees glucose. It releases insulin. And if you're drinking these between meals, you're creating constant insulin spikes throughout the day. That's metabolic stress. That's inflammation. That's the exact environment where arterial damage begins. The question to ask your doctor, write this down. Do I actually need supplemental protein? Most seniors eating a balanced diet with eggs, chicken, fish, fish, or legumes are already getting enough. If your doctor confirms you need more protein, get it from food, not from a bottle with 15 ingredients you can't pronounce. The fifth and final beverage is the one I see most often in patient histories: diet soda. And I already hear the skepticism. People switch to diet soda specifically to avoid sugar. They think they're making the healthier choice. And for years, I thought the same thing. But the research over the past decade has completely changed how we understand artificial sweeteners and what they do to your cardiovascular system after 60. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame, sucralose, and acesulfame K don't raise blood sugar directly. That part is true, but they do something worse. They alter your gut microbiome. The bacteria in your intestines that regulate inflammation, produce certain vitamins, and communicate with your immune system. When those bacteria are disrupted, your body's inflammatory response goes haywire. Chronic inflammation is the root cause of almost every age-related disease: heart disease, stroke, diabetes, dementia. Multiple studies now show that people who drink diet soda daily have a 23% higher risk of stroke and a 29% higher risk of heart disease compared to people who don't drink it at all. Let that sink in. The beverage people switched to in order to protect their health is increasing their risk of the exact conditions they're trying to avoid. But here's what makes it even more insidious. Diet soda doesn't just damage your microbiome, it tricks your brain. When you taste something sweet, your brain expects calories. When those calories don't arrive, it increases your cravings for actual sugar later in the day. You end up eating more. Your insulin spikes more. Your inflammation increases more. It's a metabolic trap disguised as a health choice. The fix is simple: water. Sparkling water if you want carbonation. Add lemon. Add cucumber. Add a splash of real fruit if you need flavor. But stop drinking the chemical cocktail that's marketed as a safe alternative. It's not safe. It's just slower. I want to be honest with you for a moment. Not as a content creator, as a surgeon, I have stood at an operating table at 3 in the morning holding a heart that was struggling to beat. I have spoken to families in waiting rooms at dawn, families who had no idea anything was wrong when they said goodnight 8 hours earlier. In case after case, the contributing factors were not mysterious. They were coffee consumed all day long, sports drinks after light activity, orange juice every morning, protein shakes as snacks, diet soda with every meal. These are not exotic risk factors. They are the background noise of millions of ordinary kitchens. And that background noise, accumulated day after day, year after year, creates the exact conditions I see when I open a chest. I want to tell you about a patient. I'll call him David, 73 years old, a retired engineer, sharp as ever, active in his community. He came to me after experiencing severe chest pain during a routine walk with his wife. When I reviewed his intake, I saw the pattern immediately. 3 cups of coffee, a protein shake at lunch, diet soda all afternoon, orange juice at breakfast. He thought he was being health conscious. He thought he was doing everything right. We made changes, real changes. 6 months later, his arterial calcium score dropped. His inflammation markers normalized. His blood pressure stabilized without increasing his medication. The first thing he said to me was this: "Why didn't anyone tell me this sooner?" Ansan nde dakindi. And that question stays with me. It's a big part of why I make videos like this one. So here's your action plan. Coffee, limit to 1 cup before 2 p.m., always with food. Sports drinks, replace with plain water unless you're sweating heavily for over an hour. Fruit juice, replace with whole fruit, eat an orange instead of drinking one. Protein shakes, talk to your doctor, most of you don't need them. Diet soda, stop completely, replace with water or sparkling water with real fruit. Which of these habits do you recognize in your own evenings? Tell me in the comments. There is someone in your life, a spouse, a sibling, a friend who needs exactly this information. Send it to them. That one share might be the most important thing you do today. Every week I bring you honest, evidence-based information that I wish every one of my patients had access to long before they needed surgery. If you want more of that, subscribe. One last thing, and this is important. Everything I've shared today is based on published research and my clinical experience as a cardiothoracic surgeon. But your situation is unique. Your history is individual. Before changing anything, any medication, any supplement, any routine, please talk to your own physician first. That conversation is not a formality. It is the whole point. Better information, better conversations, better outcomes. That's the chain that matters. Your heart has been working for you every single minute of every single day for 60, 70, 80 years without ever asking for anything in return. Give it this. Take care of your heart.